Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast, live at youtube.com/PaulGallant and on twitch.tv/Gallant Says. Also available facebook.com/PaulGallant Sports, on Instagram at SportsGallant, and on X at Gallant Says. It is Friday, July 19th, 2024. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I'm lazy. You know this already. But your boy has been hard at work covering your beloved Houston Texans. And guess what time it is, everybody?
It's football time in Houston, and we're ready to play.
Let's go. What's up, Rig Hagwood? I was at Texans Training Camp day 1 and day 2. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Not a lot of huge observations that I walk away from those 2 practices with. These are practices that were in helmets, no shoulder pads, no hitting. It's a dress rehearsal for the real shit. At least I hope. But before I get into that, I did want to share the 5 biggest questions that I had going into Texans training camp. These are the things that I'm going to keep an eye on to the best of my ability. Question number 5, and this really has to do with the way that Texans training camp is covered. I saw a couple of people that have been aggregating and taking away content from the people that are actually at practice and coming up with these grand sweeping takeaways of what's actually going on here. You got to take everything that happens in these practices with a grain of salt. Everything. We're all excited. We're all dying for football to be back. But remember, a lot of the shit that goes down these next couple of weeks won't mean a damn thing come September. Weren't we all freaking out about CJ Stroud's first preseason performance against the Patriots? And then look at what happened over the course of the regular season. But here are my 5 biggest questions. Number 5, who is going to be the biggest dork when it comes to keeping stats during practice? People do that. Men throwing to other men in shorts while wearing a red jersey, which doesn't allow them to be hit. He was actually 16 of 21 for 173 yards over the course of today's practice. The person who's going to do this is none other than my friend DJ Bien-Aimé of ESPN. He even admitted that he would do it. Came up to him and told him while we were watching some trivial shit going on at practice on Thursday, which was day 1. But it's going to be fun to watch some people overanalyze training camp. Listen, again, we're all jonesing for content, and some people are going to eat that content and swallow it whole. But remember, everything with lots of grains of salt. Number 4, an actual real question heading into training camp. Is the offensive line actually going to make it out of camp 1, healthy, 2, solidified? Are we actually going to have left to right a unit that for the most part is going to be available weeks 1 through 17. That did not happen last year. Shaq Mason's the only guy that actually played the entirety of the year at right guard. Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, at left guard. You're hoping it's Kenyon Green? Juice Scruggs, maybe he's center, maybe he's left guard. Mason, who I mentioned, right tackle Titus Howard, who is finally back out there. Good to see him out there. Kenyon Green's in good shape, by the way. For all those who are a bit nervous about him going into year 3, barely having played much, and when he did play, year 1, started off good. Brian Baldinger noticed. He liked what he saw, but then ultimately things kind of hit the fan as the season went along. Number 3, a lot of people are curious about this, so I am too, but I don't think it's going to matter all that much. Who's CJ Stroud going to have the most chemistry with as far as guys that he throws the football to? At the end of last year, he had to rely on Nico Collins due to necessity. He clearly has some sort of Vulcan mind meld. Do you do it like this? I don't know, Star Trek-y people. I do know what the reference means, though. He seems to have a Vulcan mind meld kind of deal with Tank Dell. When shit breaks down, Stroud is going to look for Tank Dell. We noticed that last year when Dell was healthy. Stephon Diggs, if he's still Stephon Diggs, he's going to get open a lot. There was one play on Thursday, a comeback route where Stephon Diggs in front of Derek Stingley made a really nice play. We all know Derek Stingley's a very good corner. I think ESPN ranked him the number 10 corner in the NFL going into this season. Is he Sauce Gardner's level? I think we would all agree that he at least takes the football away more than Sauce Gardner as a result of no one throwing Sauce Gardner's way. But who is CJ going to have the most chemistry with? Will he develop it with Diggs as the season goes along? Because clearly he has it more with Nico and with Dell at this moment in time. And honestly, because of the fact that Stroud can kind of improvise when shit hits the fan and find Dell eventually, it might be Dell that he has the most chemistry with. Number 2, after Derek Stingley, who do you trust in the Houston Texans secondary? And look, training camp, the 7-on-7 stuff, quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends going up against defensive backs, that is really where you can take the most away from practice. What happens in the trenches, take it with a grain of salt. But it's the 7-on-7 stuff. And really the wide receivers going up against the defensive backs. And last year, Derek Stingley didn't play in every single game, but proved when he was healthy after that hamstring injury kept him out for a long period of time. He's the Texans' best defensive back. But after that, Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward actually played in 10 games for the Texans last season at safety. This is not meant to be an offensive to him, but did you notice him? Because to be perfectly honest, I barely noticed Jimmy Ward playing safety. Jalen Petrie took a step back. He was bad at tackling. Didn't have the kind of impact that he had year one where he had a lot of takeaways. And I have no idea who their second cornerback is going to be. Right now it is Kamari Lassiter. We'll talk about him and what we saw out of him in the first 2 practices in a little bit. Again, you got to take everything that happened with a grain of salt, especially these first 2 practices. But it sure as shit is not Jeffrey Okudah or CJ Henderson who's going to be the number 2 corner for the Texans at this point in time. I do wonder if the Texans are going to add somebody. They supposedly, at least per over the cap, have about $20.2 million in cap space right now. So, with that in mind, Nick Caserio had a 30-minute press conference on Thursday before everything kicked off. So I asked him this Big J journalist question.
Seems like these days there are more veteran players who maybe weren't signed with teams at the start of training camp. How do you balance evaluating the players that are out there on the field with some that might be available for you, specifically as defensive back?
No, it's a great question. We're actually looking at that pretty much every day. So there's different groups and categories of players. You probably have some, call it, more established veterans, some of the better players. That's kind of one category of players. Quite frankly, a lot of those players are kind of wait for something to happen, whether it's an injury or they're kind of waiting for the season to get a little bit closer so they have to go through training camp, which is fine. That's their prerogative. And then you kind of have another cohort of players, maybe some younger players who are more about camp depth and camp competition, some younger players. I mean, as an example, Malik Fisher, a kid we signed there the other day who played in the UFL, so had a spring of football. So it's just kind of managing the roster. So Malik Fisher is a different caliber of player than maybe Ngakwe, just to pick a name, right? Somebody like that. So we look at that every day. Most teams do. You kind of have your sort of short list, emergency list sort of ready to go. But you're not going to be knee-jerk with your response. You want to see how your players kind of develop. And then once you get a little bit closer to the season, there's probably a player here that's not here right now that as we get closer to the opener, maybe he ends up on a team like we did with Amendola, a few years ago, whenever that was. So very fluid. There's no cookie-cutter approach on that, but you're certainly aware and cognizant of some of the other players that are out there and that might be available.
Caserio is not one who is short with his words. More on that in a moment. But what I took from that answer is that it's on the table for them to add some sort of defensive back or any other kind of free agent before the end of this offseason. He did mention Yannick Ngakwe out of the blue along the way. I wish he had mentioned Quandre Diggs or Justin Simmons or a Stephon Gilmore, and he mentioned a short list along the way. Stephon Gilmore would be close to the top of my list, but I really want Quandre Diggs as well. I bet you can only get one player of that caliber. I know some people are going to say Justin Simmons with $20 million in space. Let's say, I don't know, just an estimate 10, 11, $12 million for 1 year or something like that. Maybe you do a 2-year deal. Caserio never goes longer than 2. But you're hoping that they bring in somebody. They need to bring in somebody. So that was question number 3. Question number 4. Who will be the first local media member to zag against the team? Because let's be honest, the Houston Texans have been getting slurped. I mean, there's been a lot of action on the Texans. It's been a lot of foreplay. A lot of foreplay. Hours worth of foreplay. And yet, there's only been one person to really call out the Texans for being very confident this offseason, talking nonstop this offseason. It was Jason Braddock, who you might remember from ESPN 97.5. He had a blow up with Patrick Creighton. Or you might remember him from Sports Talk 790. But he wrote, I thought, a very good, well-written column, and then he got fucking crushed for it. And then he just left. He just quit. He stopped writing. We need more zaggers. That does sound like a slur. Maybe that's because of South Park, that episode of Wheel of Fortune where Randy Marsh, instead of saying naggers, which was what he was supposed to say, says something else entirely. Don't do that, Randy. That's a bad Randy. But we did have somebody be the first media member to zag against the Houston Texans. It was none other than DJ Bien-Aimé of ESPN on the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny.
So it sounds to me like you are going Texans, Colts, Jags, Titans. You were very high in the Titans last year. Do you remember that?
I was. I do remember that. I was very high on, I was high on Mike Vrabel.
DJ, you were high on the Titans. I told you in a show that the Titans fell apart the year before and that everything was going bad and that the offensive line wasn't the same offensive line that it was. I'm patting myself on the back for the one prediction that I got right going into last year. Anyway, here is DJ continuing to talk.
No, his old line was just bad. So I think, I think I haven't done my research. I think the Colts end up winning the division. One of my biggest things is the Texans schedule scares me. It scares me.
DJ.
The Texans schedule, it scares me. Like,
wow, let it not be said that you were biased.
Yeah, that's
what a shocking pick.
Yeah, I think the Colts end up winning because I like their schedule. I like the pieces that they have. I think AR is going to take, if he stays healthy, he's going to take, a massive. But I still think the Texans make the playoffs. I think they get one of the wild card spots.
DJ Bien-Aimé is picking the Indianapolis Colts to win the AFC South. But I actually don't hate it because, we watched that game on Saturday, last game of the year in the regular season, where the Colts came a 4th and 1 away from potentially converting and winning the game. Ultimately, they're stopped on 4th down. The game ends. The Texans win. They move on to the playoffs. But, they were moving the ball at will on that drive, and then they took Jonathan Taylor off the field. I still have no idea why. But that's really the furthest anyone has gone when it comes to doubting the Houston Texans publicly. National media, local media. Everyone seems a little scared. I've debated putting on the black hat just as a bit, because I do think this Texans team is going to be better than it was last year. But the schedule is a lot more difficult, and they could be better and still 10-7 with all the good teams that they play against. 4th toughest schedule in the NFL. So there you go. Anyway, guys, those are my 5 biggest questions for the Houston Texans entering training camp. I also went to training camp. Day 1, Thursday, July 18th. Here's what I saw. Some real groundbreaking shit. Number 1, Joe Mixon doesn't wear gloves. That's a real man. I stopped wearing gloves in the middle of my senior year in a game once. But that was because back in 2006, gloves weren't as sticky as they are today. It's bullshit what these kids get to play with. You know who else doesn't wear gloves? At least at training camp? Cade Stover. And you know what? The quarterback room's got a lot of chemistry based off of this observation. Case Keenum spanked Davis Mills. It's the kind of analysis, not analysis. Come on, guys. He just spanked him. It's the kind of analysis you should come to expect from me. I notice the little things. A serious observation, though, and this goes back to what I was talking about before and why I'm hoping that the Houston Texans are going to look at another cornerback. Stephon Gilmore said, there aren't 64 cornerbacks better than me in the NFL. He's fucking right. There isn't. I don't know how many are better than him, but, I mean, the guy was a defensive player of the year not that long ago. He played decently for the Dallas Cowboys last season. He's still available. Is he that expensive? He should be out there, man. Come on, let's go. Stroud threw a really tight window throw to Tank Dell. That Kamari Lassiter, who's the number 2 corner for the Texans currently, he was in coverage, and okay, it was a great throw by Stroud, and Dell just beat him. But the very next play, on a play that Stroud checked the football down to Joe Mixon, I noticed that Kamari Lassiter got absolutely toasted by Tank Dell. We haven't seen that many plays 7-on-7 with the Texans throwing against the first team defense. I'm hoping we get to see more of it tomorrow because for the most part, it's been rather uneventful at practice. But I am not convinced that the Texans have a trustworthy number 2 corner. They might by the end of the year put a guy in the frying pan long enough. Okay, come playoff time, if they make it, he could be ready to go. But, I mean, you're going up against a lot of good quarterbacks. And do you want to have a game where cornerback number 2 is getting just destroyed by all the great quarterbacks that they go up against? I don't. So that's what I observed at Texans Training Camp practice number 1. Here is what I heard at Texans Training Camp practice number 1. First off, Nick Caserio had a press conference at 8:30 before practice. These are the kind of important statistics that I feel like are important to share with Texans fans everywhere. Nick Caserio gave us 19 answers in a press conference that was about 20 minutes or so. If you transcribe said press conference, it was a lot of words. 14.8 pages, double-spaced, at Arial size 12. He is speaking English reports for you. I mean, he is doing research theses out there. This fucker could go out in front of Congress and filibuster with the best of them. I think it was 4,300 words or so, if my math is right. It might even have been more. 233.42 words per answer. I don't know if he's making progress, but that man is a master of using a lot of words to say not all that much. But I will give him credit because he's starting to get cocky. And look, no football team is ever going to admit that they care about the outside noise. But the way that Caserio is dismissing it in his press conference, I'm not going to lie, I love it. Here's the first example of that in that Thursday morning press conference.
So what's said outside of the building, I mean, it has no impact on anything that we do. Talking never won games, expectations never won games. Good football and good execution win football games. So ultimately, that's what it's going to come down to. So the rest of it, honestly, it's a big waste of time for us to spend time on things that don't matter or that we don't control.
It's football time in Houston. Houston, and we're ready to play.
Fuck yeah, Nick. Fuck yeah. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about that outside noise. He doesn't care about things he can't control. And you know what? In your life, you shouldn't do that either. But he wasn't done being cocky, puffing that vest. Here's another example of Nick Cocky Caserio.
Control. We can't control what somebody else thinks, what some ridiculous ranking that doesn't matter thinks or means. So we're going to focus on the Texans. We're going to focus on ourselves. We're going to focus on trying to improve ourselves individually and collectively on a day-to-day basis.
It's football time in Houston, and we're ready to play.
Nick Caserio doesn't care what the haters think or what you think. And I care that Nick Caserio doesn't care, because that's the kind of mentality a good organization needs to have. Now, again, he was with the Patriots for such a long time, but there has been a whole lot of slurping on the Texans this offseason, and I like that they're all trying to avoid the rat poison. You got a bunch of Alabama guys, you got a bunch of Ohio State guys. There's a lot of people in this organization that are the right kind of people as far as being able, you would think, to ignore having their ass kissed over and over again. So that's what we heard from Nick Caserio. We've also got an all-time line that's going to get you pumped from D'Amico Ryans when it comes to how he feels and what he expects out of this year's rookie class. Here is D'Amico.
And for our rookies, I tell them, we're not waiting on you. It's time to go. Like, we drafted everyone for a reason. Like, you're here for a reason, so show up and let's see why you are here. It's no wait and see 2 years down the line. It's like, what are you doing for us right now? We want our rookies to know and understand the urgency of them to contribute right now. It's not a later thing. It's a right now thing, and they understand that message.
It's football time in Houston,
I'm going to do this after every quote.
and we're ready to play.
After every quote, guys. I'm going to do it. After every single quote, I am just going to play that. Just kidding. I'll stop after that one. But I like that mentality because I get to thinking about rookies who are drafted and they don't expect to play and they don't expect expectations on them. And it just makes me think about how tanking is absolutely reprehensible. It's something that the Astros did for a while. And I mean, hey, it worked out in the end, but I just think it's a disgusting way to operate as a sports franchise, to just waste your fans' time and their money. The Rockets have been doing it the last couple of years too. A rookie should have huge expectations placed on their shoulders. Huge. They should be of the mindset that I could be on the field at any moment in time, and I should be fighting to get on the field as soon as I possibly can. Some of them come in and they're like, yeah, I can just sit back and kick my feet up. There's no pressure on me to get out there. And that's how the Philadelphia 76ers happen. Like, do you take them seriously? Oh, they have Paul George now. That loser juice ferments over time. And year one, I could understand how the Texans maybe were a little bit casual with how much pressure they put on their rookies. But this year, this time around, no, they've changed it. Good. They should have. More noteworthy quotes from Houston Texans Training Camp. CJ Stroud said a couple of things that made for great headlines for the aggregators on Twitter, for websites like Pro Football Talk. I'm going to read a couple of quotes as transcribed by people online, and then I'm going to actually play the quote for you. Because Stroud was asked about the things that he's looking to improve on in his second season in the NFL. And you read this, it's turned into a headline. It does make him sound like he's, at minimum, cocky, or two, trending towards being another Russell Wilson. Let me read the quote first. Quote, I really can say, just like owning the offense more, the operation, owning the offense. You hear that, it's going to sound different than when you read it, but you read it. I want to own the offense. I want control over the offense. I want to definitely attack down the field more this year and press guys back. So you read those two quotes, attack, own the offense, on X or in a headline, and you're going to think, oh man, Stroud's being rather demanding. And these are the kind of things, the kind of quotes that we heard from Russell Wilson in Seattle when I was up there. I got to say, man, it does not sound, that does not read anything like what CJ Stroud sounded like at that press conference yesterday. Here is the quarterback of your Houston Texans.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of things, most of the things, I really can say just like owning the offense more, operation, putting more on my plate, with just like run checks, protection checks, things like that. And then really just like everything inside the field, X's and O's can always be better. You can always have better footwork. I want to definitely attack down the field more this year and, press guys back and, but also take what the defense gives me and if it's boring, if it's a boring play, just stay with the boring stuff and, just be efficient with that. So
look at that. If there's boring stuff, just stay with it. So he's not looking to attack all game long, and he's not looking to own the offense more. But you see headlines that'll get put out there and quotes that just pick a couple of words there because that's all the rage online these days, and you're going to think that CJ Stroud's up at the table basically plopping his schmenzer up there and saying, like, this is my fucking team, and we're going to do what I fucking want. Or perhaps a little bit more calm than that. Another quote from CJ Stroud where you read it and you think, damn, there's so much Texans cockiness right now. Maybe too much Texans cockiness. He called the Texans offense a five-headed monster. You read that and you're like, oh man, he thinks it's the best offense in the NFL. A little bit too cocky. Oh, is he really avoiding the rat poison? But here is how CJ Stroud actually sounded when he said that quote.
Film this offseason, does Stephon open your playbook at all, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I watch a little bit of everybody around the league. I watch Buffalo, I watch the Rams, I watch Minnesota, I watch Kansas City. Lions are a great team to watch offensively. So I learn from everybody. But yeah, I mean, Steph is somebody who definitely can open up your playbook, but we have all of those guys around. He'll say that too, So it's five-headed monster, so it's definitely super dope to have, just a bunch of options.
So, yeah, hear him talk about it. Five-headed monster, you read the headline, oh man, Texans are really feeling themselves. But you hear him, he thinks about it for a little bit. He's not that adamant about it. He's not slamming the table or anything like that. So these are the things to keep in mind when you read a quote online versus when you listen to one or you watch it. The tone changes entirely. And a lot of those really like big words that make for a great headline usually are said deadpan or with not a lot of thought behind it. And I think that's what happened there. More from CJ Stroud at his press conference on Thursday. Not going to lie. This quote inspired the hell out of me / made me think that I need to work on some things in my life. Don't hate. Appreciate.
The person who always doubts himself probably will never make it to that point, so.
Damn. The person who always doubt themselves will never make it to that point. Gotta say, as a self-loather, as a self-hater, which I know a lot of you are probably like, what? You're such an egomaniac. True. But I also, at the same time, beat the hell out of myself. Phrasing could have been a little bit better there. I beat up on myself. Wait, that doesn't sound much better. either. You get what I'm fucking saying? I'm just trying to say that you got to have confidence in life. You got to almost fake it till you make it. I don't want to fake it too much. I don't want to seem like I'm full of shit, but you got to fake it till you make it. It's the new hit song that's sweeping America. More from CJ Stroud. These are the kind of things that were a tad annoying, at least to me. Number one, I don't like it when somebody talks in the third person, whether it's accidental or on purpose. And we did have one moment of that in CJ Stroud's press conference.
Since we've been kids, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be harder. We have a target on our back this year, and that's how you should want it. And that's what I'm used to playing at Ohio State. And
I got the order of the clips wrong. Fuck, I knew that was going to happen eventually. Listen, this is more about the humble bragging about Ohio State. Ohio State people love to humble brag. There's always a flex. Yeah, I went to the Ohio State. We always had a target on our back at the Ohio State. But there was another moment in that press conference where CJ Stroud multiple times referred to himself in the third person. And look, it happens. It happens. I get it. But I would like it to happen less. More from Thursday's press conference for the Houston Texans. Will Anderson, the Terminator. I want to interview Will Anderson and ask him if he can do a Terminator impersonation. Will Anderson, do you relate more to the Terminator in Terminator 1 or Terminator 2? Do you feel like you're the T-1000? Can you do a Terminator impersonation? Will Anderson, I'm going to sack you. Get to the chopper. Here's Will Anderson talking about beefing up. He certainly looks a little bit bigger. Here he is, the third overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft.
Do you feel like you were prepared for the storms that we got? And what do you want to say to Houston about the storms that we had?
Yeah, I wasn't here. So I was back in Georgia, thank God. And I came back and the tree fell in my backyard and my power was off. But I hope everybody was safe, and next time we have one, everybody continue to prepare the right way.
Actually, that's just Will Anderson talking about safety. Again, sometimes your boy needs to work on the technical side of things. And on the other hand, I also probably need to put less clips into the show because this is taking a while, isn't it?
Put on some muscles.
Here we go.
Yeah, I think last year I was like 248, and about the time we got to like the Ravens game, I was just like, I just can't last. Like, I feel like I was getting tossed around, so I kind of bulked up a little this offseason, tried to keep my speed. Well, I did keep my speed, so I'm like 263 now. I feel good. Some people still say I don't even look big, so I appreciate you for that.
I relate, Will Anderson. A lot of people say I don't look big, and you know what? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. GTL, baby. I just got a little pump on. How about that? I'll do that for you. Anyway, that's Will Anderson. You're going to hear this a lot this year, too. The last thing from the press conference on Thursday. Here is Nico Collins. Prepare to hear this word as much as you hear swarm, and as much as you say, as much as you hear CJ Stroud say the word dog.
It's fun, practice is going to be competitive, fun, man. I feel like that's the best, man. Iron sharpens iron,
Iron sharpens iron. I swear, you are going to hear this so many fucking times this year. And look, hey, the coach is telling them that, and they're going to repeat it. But like I've heard Will Anderson say swarm in an interview with Rich Eisen. And I think CJ Stroud also talked about iron sharpening iron in his press conference on Thursday too. So those are my observations from Texans Training Camp on Thursday. What happened today? What happened today? Well, here's what happened today. I'm going to show you leadership in action. There's some people on here, specifically our friends in the Twitch. What's up? Chalupa Batman, Poor Marine, Largo, and Brad Spoon. What's up, Brad? Miss you, buddy. Here is something that's going to make you actually believe in CJ Stroud. You guys hate on him so much. You don't believe that he's the promised one, the chosen one, the prince who was promised, the first decent quarterback in Texans history. And you know why? Because he's got the respect of every single player in the NFL. Because could you do this? CJ Stroud is doing something here that I'm not going to lie, like I definitely couldn't do because I have a small brain. But here's CJ Stroud with a handshake for every single one of the running backs. Look at that. Handshake. Another handshake. Another handshake. Another handshake. Another handshake. He's got, I can't even remember half the people I work with's names. Like our sales staff, who are apparently salaried. Interesting. I don't know a lot of their names. That's my fault. But, hey, CJ Stroud, not only does he remember all of his teammates' names, he's got a handshake for every single one of them. That's the mark of one of the best leaders in the NFL. I put up one of those really insufferable aggregator tweets up there, and guess what? Of course, it actually does better than most of the tweets that I put out there. So people don't seem to understand that I'm always being like sarcastic and ironic online. Maybe they think I'm just like an absolute cheeseball. Should I lean into it? Lean into it a little bit more? I could. Probably get me paid. But CJ Stroud has a handshake for all of his teammates. Yeah. That means he's respected. So there you go. Hey, guys. We got more. We got more. Did you know it was only 80 degrees out? It's only 80 degrees out at Texans Training Camp. Look at that. Look at this beautiful weather. See the cloud coverage? Are those cirrus? Are those Columbo nimbuses? I don't know. All I know is I'm not sure the Houston Texans are going to be ready for the start of the season because, guys, they're not practicing in the heat. You know, when I was back in Florida, in all district safety, 2-a-days, you know what kind of weather we practiced in? The hottest. The Texans are practicing in 80-degree weather. It was drizzly on Thursday. Are they going to be the team that they need to be if they aren't practicing in the heat? That Texas heat to become Texas tough? You got to wonder about that. Okay. What else? Other serious observations from today at Houston Texans Training Camp. Listen, I know a lot of people think I'm gay, and maybe I am. I don't even know. Maybe I'm trapped in the closet. But I'm sorry. How can you not get lost while looking at Danielle Hunter's biceps?
Like you are going.
How can you not get lost? Look at that. Look at this. Enhance. That's not enhancing. Enhance. 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 I don't know how to enhance. But Danielle Hunter, look how veiny his bicep is. Jesus Christ. That is a huge fucking bicep. And it's vascular too. And that's what you want. You want to be vascular with your bicep. So I'm jealous, really. I hate my little arms. They're so tiny. You know, I beat up on myself a lot. You would think that beating up on myself would make my arms bigger, you know, like a shake weight or something like that. Nope. Doesn't do the trick. Alas, earwax. So, speaking of Texans defenders, Danielle Hunter, one of the new ones, but Azeez Al-Shaair, also a new Houston Texan. And as far as some of my very, very serious observations from Texans training camp, there haven't been many things to look at and notice. Al-Shaair seems to have the ability to cover people downfield. he showed it tracking a pass that was intended for Noah Brown. He was almost step for step with Noah Brown, who was a wide receiver. And maybe that's an indictment on Noah Brown's speed, but I was pretty excited to see Al-Shaair actually look like he can scoot a little bit, because that was a problem for the Texans last year, especially when Denzel Perriman was out there. Perriman's just slow. He's more of a old school gap filling linebacker. Al-Shaair is someone that we've heard a lot of really good things about, courtesy of DeMeco Ryans and Will Anderson. And the hope is that Al-Shaair is going to step in and make the middle of this Texans defense a little bit better. Also of note, we saw very light work for the Houston Texans on kickoff and kick return. There was some chatter on the sidelines amongst media members about what this new kickoff is going to look like. I think we're getting a little bit overexcited about it. I don't think that the new kickoff means that we're going to see so many returns. And let me try to explain it to you. The 30-yard line, is it really that much of a detriment? A touchback goes to the 30 instead of the 25. I like that they're making the kick returners and kickoff teams do it in a way where the coverage team isn't going to get down there in 5 seconds, and where the kick returners have to line up in a specific way. But I feel like teams eventually are going to realize that it's probably going to do more harm than good kicking off to another team to try to set them up in bad field position. So you try to sky a kickoff so that your coverage team can get down there. The tricky thing is, if you're kicking off of a tee, there's only so many ways that you can get hang time. So if you kick the ball high up in the air, sure, a returner might not be able to get underneath and do much with it. But the higher it goes up, the shorter the kickoff is going to be. And you can't do onside kicks anymore unless you declare that you're doing it before, which I think is stupid. So for the most part, these kicks are going to have to be line drives. And as someone who was a kick returner in high school, and it was one of the things I actually was pretty good at, when these are line drive to you, the ball gets to you really quickly. And even if they air it a little bit, it's also one of those kicks where you can see everybody coming towards you as you try to catch the ball and then take off with it. So imagine this ball is kind of coming towards you in a line drive, and say I'm looking up like this, it comes down to me. I can still, from here, field of vision, see the guys that are coming after me. So I can basically decide, hey, what lane I want to go. And then on top of that, with the way that kickoffs are, okay, if this kickoff goes a little bit shorter, these guys are all supposed to, on the kickoff teams, be dedicated to a lane, and you're supposed to stay true to your lane, stay home. If you're staying true to that lane and trying to prevent it, and you're running upfield to a certain degree, all it's going to take is 1 or 2 missed tackles for you to potentially bust it through. 1 or 2 moves, if everyone stays true to their lanes and isn't collapsing perfectly, then it's going to be pretty easy for these returns to do some serious damage. So I feel like NFL teams are probably better off just kicking it out the back of the end zone after a touchback. I don't think 10 yards of field position from the 20 to the 30 is really all that big of a deal. I know field position is huge, but we're in an NFL now where teams can all throw the football. And, okay, you're scared of maybe a safety or turning the football over on the other side of the field, but I think we're now at a point where you shouldn't be so paranoid about starting off at the 15 or the 10-yard line anymore. All right, at the 5, inside the 5 or something like that, that's something. But I feel like the new kickoff rules are good, but I don't think that we're going to see so many more kickoffs. I think ultimately a lot of teams are going to decide, you know what, we're just going to kick it out the back of the end zone. And it's going to turn once again into one of those plays that you can go take a piss, get some food, etc. So anyway, that's a very long tangent on the kickoff, and I'm sure some people are going to tell me that makes absolutely no sense. Well, guess what? Fuck you. I used to return kicks at the lowest level of high school football in Florida, okay? Anyway, those were my two big observations from Texans training camp practice on Friday. Again, not a lot happening. So let me dive into, really quickly, the things that we heard at training camp practice on Friday. Here is D'Amico Ryans talking about Azeez Al-Shaair, who you should be excited about.
Adding Azeez to our team has been really valuable. His experience, the way he communicates, the way the leadership that he brings when it comes to bringing guys together. That's what Azeez does, and he's also a tremendous player, physical player, plays the style of ball that I think the way the game should be played. He exhibits that every single snap, so I'm excited to see him to continue to grow and continue to build the relationships here in Houston.
Hell yeah. I'm actually very excited about Azeez Al-Shaair too, and if you've missed it, Will Anderson had a funny anecdote talking about how Al-Shaair, on a play where Anderson jumped off sides, and either he was complaining about it or whining about it, and Al-Shaair told him to stop fucking pouting. Quote. I love it. And clearly everybody on the team already has a great deal of respect for him. And, of course, D'Amico Ryans is going to have a great deal of respect for him because D'Amico Ryans is the reason that he's in the NFL. That's a guy that he saw when he was in San Francisco and wanted to bring him in. And D'Amico Ryans does seem to have the golden touch when it comes to linebackers. Take a look at Fred Warner, a guy who was a mid-round draft pick for San Francisco back in the day. Now he's one of the best in the NFL. More quotes from Friday's practice. Here's Joe Mixon comparing the Cincinnati Bengals offense, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Mixon was a part of it for a little bit as well, to the Houston Texans offense.
I'm not here to, want to compare my team compared to Cincinnati's, old teams, but I've definitely been on a championship team before. And I know what it's like. I know what it takes to get there, and I feel like we have no doubt we have the best talent that I've seen here, in a long time. And I honestly feel like the team that we have here, I know that we're ready to, go for that long run, man. But at the end of the day, we just
hell yeah. He's seen championship teams before, and he says I don't want to compare the two teams, but also said that this is the most talent I've been around.
Football time in Houston, and we're ready to play.
Hell yeah. So that's Joe Mixon. A couple other guys spoke at training camp practice after it was done today. Here we have, once again, Danielle Hunter explaining that for the first time in his career, he doesn't have to think. He's coming off of a 16.5 sack season in Minnesota, and now apparently he can just pin his ears back and go straight up field. Here's Danielle Hunter.
I mean, in the past, I came from just a reading defense. They really don't want me to read. They just want me to go here. So, get at it.
You like that more?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have to think about anything. I just go. And I feel like I've been reading for about 8-9 years, and I feel like they want me to not do that and just go.
Look at his fucking biceps. Just look at these things. Unbelievable. I don't care. I can appreciate a man's body parts, okay? They got a donk, I'll appreciate it. No, not like that. If they got biceps, I'll appreciate it. Okay? We shouldn't be uncomfortable complimenting another man. It's just guys supporting guys. There's nothing wrong with that. More Danielle Hunter. Here he is. Talking about things that he can teach to Will Anderson and some of the other pass rushers on the Texans.
Yesterday, Will was talking about your hand action. He said that you got probably some of the quickest hands, and he's still trying to pick up certain little techniques that what he was doing is almost like jiu-jitsu or hand fighting or karate. What is it?
Jiu-jitsu, hand fighting, and karate. Ooh.
And you're trying to ingratiate with him about what you're using your hands.
You know, I feel like being a defensive lineman, I feel like that's what it's all about. Your hands, your eyes, and your feet. And if you don't use your hands, you're going to get blocked. So I try to teach them simple things, you know, nothing too crazy, that littlest movements could get you far. Beating a guy and then getting you to the quarterback. You know, being able to take his game from here to here. So you can't.
Okay, taking his game from here to here. How about taking the game from here to here and here to here? Oh, yeah. Getting the pump on? Oh, yeah. Daniil Hunter, you got me inspired, big dog. Look at those biceps. Oh, let's go left arm, too. Oh, yeah. Daniil Hunter, I will have your biceps by the end of the year. I don't care if it requires steroids, HGH, and a massive forehead like Peyton Manning. Just kidding. I don't want him to send those PIs to my house. I'm going to have Daniil Hunter biceps by the end of the year. Oh, yeah. Oh, GTL. Oh, Jersey Shore. Oh, Texan Swarm. Oh, give me some Clay Walker.
It's football time in Houston, and we're ready to play.
Hell yeah. Ooh, working up a little sweat. Tormac Johnson says that's a 5-pound weight. Excuse you, sir. That's 25 pounds, okay? Ooh, I feel a little lightheaded. Let's look at Daniil Hunter's biceps again and feel more lightheaded. Spoon DJ on Twitch says, iron sharpens iron. Right you are, Spoon. Fuck yeah. Oh yeah, I think I got one more quote that I got to play. This is the last thing that we will discuss. Here is Tank Dell, Texans wide receiver, talking about the many mouths at wide receiver that the Houston Texans will have to feed this coming year.
With that, I just feel like, first off, CJ was in college with like 5 number 1 receivers in the league right now. So it's like we know what it come with. We know what CJ capable of. We know what Coach Slowick capable of. He's going to call the plays for everybody to dial it up. And I just feel like with that, you know, it's going to be like everybody going to have games. I feel like one game he might be hot, or next game he hot. This game both of them might be hot. You never know. So it's just we got so many monsters. Like CJ said, 5-headed monsters that we could just come at people like in different ways.
Okay. So that's Tank Dell talking about all the different ways that Texans wide receivers can attack other teams. This is something that turns into debate online, and I think it's fucking stupid. I hate the conversation about wide receiver one on a team that has a lot of good wide receivers. And sure, all these guys, specifically Stephon Diggs, have ego, but who fucking cares about who has the most yards receiving? Conversation about yards drives me crazy. And there, look, I get it. If you got one of these guys in fantasy football, different conversation. But it doesn't matter who the wide receiver one is on this specific team. This is the point of having Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. Any week, one of those guys can lead the team in receptions. And they're all going to have to bite their tongue from time to time when they're open and Stroud doesn't throw the ball their way. That's something they're all going to have to learn to do. I don't think Diggs has played in a wide receiver core quite like this. Maybe the closest was with Adam Thielen way back in the day in Minnesota. For Tank Dell, this is certainly new. For Nico, that's certainly new, but I don't think those two really have had massive egos on the level Stephon Diggs has had for quite some time. But it does not matter who the wide receiver one is. It matters that the quarterback gets the ball to the open guy on a play-to-play basis. It's infuriating to see it online because football is a team sport, and yet like fantasy football culture and I think some basketball culture has a lot of these wide receivers saying, yeah, I'm wide receiver one. No, shut the fuck up. Like, it's one of the things I liked about the Patriots growing up. Maybe not the fact that they didn't have a wide receiver of Randy Moss's caliber until they got Randy Moss in 2007. But it was never about like, who's the best wide receiver? Who's the number one guy? It's such a weird thing that people feel the need. You have to have one wide receiver one. And like, who's the guy? Who's the guy? Whenever somebody asks me that question, I'm just going to ignore that question and say, that doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. It never should matter. It never has mattered. Get the ball to the open guy. This weird, like, who gets the final shot in basketball bullshit has seeped in. You know who should get the final shot in basketball? Who's open. The guy who's open. They're NBA players. If someone can shoot a three and he's open, he should shoot the three. It has to be the best player. How many times do you see ISO at the end of a game end up with a clank off the fucking front iron or a missed shot? Very often. Moving the ball around, getting it to open people, and allowing those open people to do things with it, with those opportunities, that's what team sports are all about. So, miss me with this wide receiver one talk and the Houston Texans. Like, it bores me, and it's pointless because it doesn't matter who the number one wide receiver is when you have this many guys. So there you go. Let's scroll through some comments really quickly. I know that the Astros are playing the Mariners right now. I forgot to put on the TV. I took way too long prepping all this and getting all these quotes ready to go. We're probably going to do a little bit less prep on that front the next time I do one of these. But I do plan on doing a recap of Texans training camp tomorrow, at some point tomorrow afternoon. I'm also going to try to do this on a daily basis after my radio show. Time to be determined, but probably right afterwards so that I can just get it done and not procrastinate until like 9, 10 o'clock like I'm doing tonight. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a great Friday night. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And to get us out, I'm going to give you guys something that I love playing a lot. And I feel like if you've never heard this song before, you're really missing out. But I do hope that the Astros give us a sweep this weekend. Hit it, baby.
Why did they argue the umpire's call? Why did the fielders crash into walls? Why do you think the pitch is so slow? Why do you think they go for broke? Who says it's only a game? Why do the catchers wear iron masks? Why do they die for the dive on the glass? Why do they go head first into home? Why do the losers feel all alone? Who says it's only a game? When you wanted to give it all you got, the war's not over till the final shot. It's pride and glory and fame. Who says it's only a game? Why do you think they call them spikes? Why do you think they call them strikes? Why do they give it more than they've got? Why do they always reach for the top? Who says it's only a game?
With me now, Astros baseball. Who says it's only a game? And on that note, that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Gallant Says podcast. Not posting this one on the podcast feed because it's a Friday, but appreciate y'all stopping by. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe to this channel, like this video on YouTube or Twitch, twitch.tv/GallantSays. You can also follow me on X at Gallant Says, Instagram at Sports Gallant, Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back at it tomorrow afternoon with another recap of Texans training camp.